Hello and welcome to the Emily Rassam Show. I am joined today by Ariane Van Treeck, and she is here to tell us her health and running journey. But we're going to start off by getting a brief introduction by her so she can tell us where she's located and a little bit about her journey before we get started.
Hello, it's wonderful to meet you, Emily, and everybody that's listening or watching us. Yes, I am German, as you can probably hear, and I was born in Essen, Germany, raised in Braunschweig, a beautiful city in northern Germany, and I live here in Naples, Italy now for the last in Naples for the last 20 years and in Italy for almost 40 years. Came here just as a pretty young girl then. I'm 60 years old now, mother of two grown-up boys and married, and here is a beautiful Italian. And yes, I live here in Naples, right beneath the beautiful volcano, the Vesuvius. Yeah.
Yes. For those of you who don't know, she's near Pompeii. It's pretty close to each other. So
True. It's pretty close to Pompeii. Yeah.
I've driven by you once then.
Did you? Nice. It's a beautiful area. Yeah, going down to the Amalfi Coast, I think.
I went to Pompeii, actually.
Only to Pompeii. Okay, good.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So you missed out. So you have to have a trip to the Amalfi Coast because it's the most beautiful place in the world, and especially for trail runners. That's a place to go.
I will have to.
Yeah.
Okay, and so you've lived in Italy for quite some time. And tell us, did you have any special careers that you did or etc.?
Yeah, well, no, I came to Italy just for purpose to stay for 2 years with an evangelical missions group.
Okay.
That do, yeah, this voluntary work here. And I don't know, I just loved it. And I stayed another year and another year and another year. And then I met my Italian husband, and the rest is history. I just kept staying in Italy. I'm totally in love with this country and its people. And so, yeah, this is definitely my second home.
Right. And I can see why you got into outdoor and trails, because I know Germany has a lot of beautiful trails too. And then you could go to Italy and also a lot of beautiful nature.
Yes. But I missed out on the trails, missed out on all the beauty for many, many years because I was such caught up in life circumstances and imprisoned in a way too big body that I sadly missed out on a lot of beauty. We did some hiking as a family when I was little. I remember my stepfather pouring out little licorice gummies on the road, and they called them he called them rabbit poo. And so we kids had to collect the rabbit poo to make us walking up the trails. Yeah, that was kind of like my first experience with outdoor activity as a child. But then honestly, in my later teen years, up until my old adult life, I had nothing to do with outdoor activities. Sadly, I must say so. Yeah.
And what prompted you to make such a drastic change in your life?
The reality that if I would have continued the way I was living, I would have certainly died very soon. I started to have serious problem with eating habits. Well, I've been overweight my whole entire childhood and basically my entire life. Did a whole lot of crash diets like everybody tries. But after every crash diet, I gained more weight back, and I had always big trouble to control that because food was such a comfort thing for me then. And of course, the bigger you get, the sadder and, and more pain you feel, the more you eat. At least that was my thing. Up until I really came to a point where literally could not be without food in my hand. I came to situations where I just would eat the most ridiculous things just to destroy food. I have something in my mouth to destroy. I don't know. Reasons for that? 1,000 probably. I mean, The human psychological state has many, many ways, and many things probably go back to my childhood. Yeah, see, maybe even the little tree that my stepfather threw on the ground with a sign that maybe food was meant as a way to make you feel good. Maybe, sometimes little things go wrong with very, very tiny, tiny reasons. I mean, I remember when there were like fights in my house between my mother and my stepfather. My mother would refuse to cook for him. And so she would take us kids to go out eating. And so, of course, that moment, just with my mother together in peace without fighting and nothing, were comfort. So in my head, food was meant comfort. Food meant you feel good. And it felt good until it didn't anymore. Until I arrived at a point where I literally felt trapped in a very, very obese body. I arrived, honestly, I wanted to look it up. I forgot how much it is in pounds, but I was arrived at 143 kilos, and going up is even just 3 little steps to my friend's house were difficult, letting alone going up a mountain. It was very, very, I mean, I was in constant pain. I was constantly out of breath. It came to a point where it even caused me difficulties in the work I'm doing now, helping out in the American community, the military community here in Naples. And I had difficulties even getting up a stair, the stairs to the second flat of the house. Yes?
Right. Yes, I hear you.
Okay. And I just came to a point where I said, if I have to do something now to really change my approach on life before it's too late. Things started getting really bad first when I turned 50. It was kind of like as if I had lost completely any will to live and any hope. Kind of like, well, now I'm 50, now I'm ready for life to go downhill. And
Right.
I'm in the end stage of my life, basically. So I really pretty much given up. 5 years later, my best friend, she died, and she got really sick, and I was with her through her terrible, terrible, terrible cancer situation. And in that period of time, it was kind of like an awakening for me of how ungrateful I was for my otherwise good health, because all my quote unquote physical problems were only related to being too big, like the backache, the knee pain, the being constantly out of breath, and irritations of my skin because, if you're big, then skin touches like everywhere. All this trouble only because I couldn't control my eating habits. And so I started one day to say, I have to work on this. And I remember, well, it was like 6 years ago. I posted a picture on Facebook with just 3 words in Italian, voglio volermi bene, which means I want to love myself, because I definitely did not love myself. With all the love I had for Jesus and all the love I have for my family, what I did not have is love for myself, just a whole lot of judgment, a whole lot of feelings of guilt. And that day I decided things have to change. And yes, of course, I took out one of the old diets that I, from time to time done. But I just started with a different approach. I started to write about my feelings every day, my feelings about food, the reasons why I, had such a hard time staying away from junk food. I started to adopt little things like, for example, taking a little bag with me with little cherry tomatoes or maybe some cheese or some olives or so. Not necessarily to eat them, but to know I have food with me. Because it was kind of like each time I knew I had no food around me, it was kind of for me as if I was getting in a panic. And yes, I can say that binge eating disorder is like addiction. Like addiction, same like maybe being addicted to drugs or to alcohol. It's really, really hard to get off the addiction of food. And yes, took me some struggles. And I would advise that everybody that feels that they're in that situation, that you just cannot go without food. I mean, we cannot go without food, but you know what I mean,
Right.
using food as a comfort thing, right? To literally need that you have to have something between your teeth just to destroy the pain of living, right? And if you have this feeling, if somebody has this feeling, I always would advise to actually look for professional help. I did not. Thankfully, maybe I wasn't mature enough. Maybe it was just the right time. Maybe even the shock about my friend dying and everything just helped me to stay on track with what I did. Maybe I just felt guided in the thing to write this diary. In fact, every week I posted a new picture of myself and a kind of account of my thoughts and what I had learned in that week, right? And
Right.
it was first in my own therapy. I became my own therapist, actually, was writing about the problem and everything. Anyhow, long story short, I lost 83 kilos in 13 months.
Wow.
And yes, and it was like, and soon, I think it took maybe only the first 20 or 30 kilos to go down that I felt like myself bursting out of this prison of being obese and not unable to move. And I started to have a real desire to get moving. But if you have such a heavy body, it was really, like, what can I do? I mean, you won't do jumping jacks with 140
Right.
kilo, or back then maybe 120 kilo. You don't, and probably would stamp a hole in the ground or have my boobs all slapping my face. you know, I don't know if I could say that. I'm sorry, but
That's okay.
but you know what I mean.
Yes.
It was just not possible and wouldn't have been healthy. But I looked a bit online and I found YouTube videos from a program called Walk at Home, and it's basically just walking on place and do little tiny aerobic exercise without jumping. Just walking on place. And they're really funny. And I started this, it was like 10 minutes and I really loved it. And first 10 minutes was already difficult. And I started to do 20 minutes, half an hour and a half, over the months
Right.
going by, until I said, well, maybe I could do this outside the house. Yeah. And I started just going out for super long walks. And it was kind of like the more I walked, the more my body got hungry for movement. And I think all the years I didn't hardly move other than for work came just out of a prison. I finally could. I finally could move. I finally could
Right.
walk, and I started to walk like for hours back then without, having a watch
Right.
counting the kilometers or so, but it just went out and walked for hours and cut out the time wherever I could to go walking faster and faster. And then actually found out there is something called fit walking. I don't know if if that's a thing in America. It is in Italy, like where you really meet even in groups and go walking with real purpose, like at least at a speed with doing 5 or 6 kilometers an hour, like fast.
Right.
And
Right. So it's
so
called, yes, we do have
they
that.
call it
They
fit
call it
walking.
race walking or speed walking here. Yeah.
Yeah, it's not like the Olympic marching. The Olympic,
Right.
the one that you see with this weird wobbly walk, it's
Yeah.
not the same. Yeah. You know what I mean? It's not the
Right.
same.
Right.
This is very, very difficult, and maybe even, I don't know, not on the healthiest thing to do if you started with back then
Right.
55 years old, 56, 55 years old. But anyhow, that's how it started. And soon enough, of course, I found out about walking marathons. I don't know if that's the thing. I know in America, many people do walk normal marathons. Here in Italy, they have actually in Germany too, like they're called mammoth marches, like super long organized marathons, or longer, like ultra marathons.
We do have those. Yes. Well, while we're here and getting started again, I'm a math nerd, so it's about 2.2 pounds per kilo. So we can just double it and get approximate estimate. So you were about 300 pounds and you
80,
lost,
82.
you said
No,
168 kilos? 82 kilos. So it's about 160 to
yeah, about,
170 pounds. And that's a rough estimate. I
yeah,
didn't add the 0.2 in for the
yeah,
calculation. So,
yeah, exactly. That's it.
and we were talking about how you started to make gradual changes over time and you were
Hmm.
journaling about it. And I know this is a thing for me. I'm 35 now and I'm getting older. I want to take extra good care of my health because
Hmm.
I have little kids. Was this a good impact that you had on your family then when you changed your lifestyle habits as well? Can we talk a little bit about
Yes,
that?
yes, yes, of course. Yes, of course, we can talk about that. I'm fortunate that my husband always says, well, I loved you when you were like big, big, big. I'm still, you said, and I still love you like this. It doesn't make any difference for me. It's so sweet. Yes, you're kind of a security, right? Yes,
That is so sweet.
I love this. And my kids, I think they're kind of happy to see me happier, I do think. And they do now realize that this comes also with the due to pay that I am much more out of the house than before and maybe not as ready to do 1,000 things
Mm-hmm.
and cook super elaborate meals because I don't have the time anymore. Right? And this
Right.
maybe sometimes, could be difficult for them to understand. Boys that can kind of take care
Right.
of themselves now. So I'm fortunate enough. I know that can be a difficulty for many younger mothers. And I sometimes wonder myself when I read posts about ultra running moms and said, I'm just amazed on how they do it,
Mm-hmm.
because it's difficult for me
Right.
to manage children. I mean, my grown up boys, then household work and everything, and get in
Right.
the adequate training. It's not easy, if you don't get up super early in the morning, it just won't happen.
Yes.
So, yes.
And is this how has this then affected your energy levels? Do you have more energy now? Do you, how do you feel after making
Okay.
such a big change?
So when I first started, let's say when I arrived on a, normal physical appearance, I was bursting with energy. I did so much stuff. Then I had
Right.
joined also a gym, and the trainer in the gym is actually the one that's the culprit about getting me to run because, I was very comfortable with only doing the speed walking thing and he wanted me to run, but this is a whole different story.
Right.
But he was constantly telling me, Ariane, you're doing too much. You're doing too much. Because I was going walking. I would go do to all these different classes in the gym I was just bursting with energy because all the energy my body needed for so many years of keeping me alive and keeping me going with all this extra weight on. Now the extra weight
Mm-hmm.
was away and there's just so much energy and I had learned to eat better, eat in a way that food was not anymore a comfort, but like a medicine, like good for my body,
Right.
just healthier all around with my way of eating and so yeah, I was bursting with energy so much, and again this one, my older son was actually right here, he sometimes says, oh
Mm-hmm.
mama, you're doing too much, and my trainer in the gym, he always says, Ariane, you're gonna hurt yourself because you're doing too much, but
Right.
energy was there so much. Nowadays, sometimes energy is going a little bit down the hill, but in a good way.
Right. So you were in your mid 50s and then you mentioned to me that you broke your hip and
Yes.
had to start all over again. Can you tell us about how that happened and
Yeah.
what that journey
So
looks like?
I was training. I had started running not so long ago. So I had already walked because that's what I was telling you before we broke down. I had already walked like two marathons of this walking marathon, and I loved it. And
Mhm.
I wanted to go longer and had already put my eye on a walking ultra marathon because I said, what can be better than walking for 100 kilometers? I thought it was the most coolest thing in the world. Then my trainer, he insisted and said, Ariane, you start running, you have to start running. And I told him, Antonio, I'm not going to start running because I'm going to hurt myself. I said, no. And he continued and he said,
Right.
if you never try to start, at least try running, I think you're going to regret it. And regrets, I had a lot already. And so I said, no, I don't want to add another regret. I just going to try to give it a try. Soon enough, after a couple of months, he started saying, Ariane, you're running too much because I really catch the bug almost immediately from when I just thought, I don't think I'm ever going to make it to run 10 kilometers at a time. I had run my first half marathon about a
Right.
month afterwards. Soon the second.
Wow.
And sure enough, I started training for my first marathon. And again, while I was starting to train for the first marathon, I was hearing, Ariane, you're doing too much. You're doing too much. And I said, no, but I have to train. I have to train. What I did was not only did I did my schedule for the marathon training with all the speed work and the long hours, the long runs I love, I also
Right.
continued my training for the speed working in the meantime, which means sometimes every day I did over 40 kilometers every single day between running and
Wow.
walking because I was a bit crazy. So one day my hip started hurting. First a little bit, but very, very significantly. And then it started giving me even a little limp. And I went to take an X-ray, and the X-ray just said, oh no, first I took like an mm, ultrasound, not an MRI, the other one
Mhm.
where ultrasound. And they said, yes, there's a little swelling, there's a little, maybe, a little irritation on your hip. When I did the X-ray, they said, oh, you have coxarthrosis on both hips. And I said, okay, cool. I told the trainer and we started to do specific movements to make it better, like movement therapy. But it didn't get better. It didn't get better.
Right.
So basically, nobody told me back then when I did the X-ray that there was a tiny small fracture on my hip, on
Right.
the head, on the top of my femur. They didn't see it back then. I don't know. Anyhow, after 3 months of great pain and every day worse pain, of course, I could not do the marathon I had planned for. So I even tried because I'm crazy. I even tried to say, well, maybe I can still walk it. I had to give up after the 13 kilometers because I was just in too much pain. A week afterwards, I went
Right.
finally to an orthopedic surgeon to have him take a look at it. And he just took my leg in the hand and dropped it back and said, come back tomorrow or the day after with an MRI. And it's not easy to get an MRI done so fast in southern Italy, but I did gratefully because after another 2 days I was in the hospital and had an emergency hip replacement because the bone had already gone into necrosis. It was so bad. So from a
Right.
little stress fracture that maybe could have healed with a little bit of rest and a little bit of patience, I had it gone so worse that my whole femur and the head of the femur was completely ruined. So yes,
Mhm.
got this. And my first question to the orthopedic surgeon was, well, will I be able to run afterwards? And he said, yeah, no problem with running a 10 kilometer here and there. I was like, and yeah, and I said, okay, let's do this. I did. And my first visit back to him after the operation, which went well, and he told me probably gonna be 3 months for me to go back to running. I said, okay. I survived somehow. I did as much strength training and therapy as much as I could. And my first visit said, I told him, Carlo, what's his name? I said, Carlo, hey, doc, 10 kilometers is kind of not kicking it for me. I'm kind of more kind of 30 or 50 kilometer running up the mountains kind of girl. And he was like, going like
Right.
this and he was basically telling me, said, okay, how old are you? You how old I am? I said, oh, well, I was 58 back then. Said, yeah, I was still 58. And I said, okay, I'm 58. I said, okay, know that the plastic that's between the two pieces of the hip replacement, that's gonna get destroyed after so many movements. Like, I don't know how many there are, maybe 100 million
Mm-hmm.
movements or so. He did say some kind of number. I forgot. He said, said if you run a lot, probably in 10 years, the replacement needs to be replaced. And he said, if you're cool with that, then I'm cool with you running your heart out. Run as much as you want, as long as you're not run in pain and everything,
Right.
and yeah, sure enough. I mean, I must say there was months of very, very hard physical therapy because my therapist did not want to allow me because I told my therapist that don't let me run before you think it's good to run. And I'm telling you, I cried a lot because he would have me do all this difficult, hard stuff, to get my sense of equilibrium, you say it in English, like balance, my sense of
Balance.
balance
Balance.
back and
Yes.
to be able to have a good balance on one foot. The whole thing, everything is connected, your core and everything, right? And I never understood how much you need your shoulder muscles in running, in this therapy session, in these 3 months. But I cried a lot because it was so hard. And he kept saying, if you don't learn to do this specific movement without stumbling, without falling, without insecurity, I won't have you run. But the day came and he said that you can go out and run a bit. Sure enough, right then and there, I had some time. I got out of his office and I went to the nearest mountain, which is a little volcano here in Naples, not the Vesuvius, and another smaller volcano called Monte Novo. And I went there for
Mm-hmm.
15-kilometer trail run. I don't think he meant that with you can run a little. But I did and I survived. And from that, I worked myself back up to running again, also on the road. But so I had started, kind of skipped that. When I started running, I started with road running. I didn't even know what trail running was. Yes,
Mm-hmm.
hiking on the trails, yes, but trail running, I didn't really know what it was up until I saw there was a race on Mount Vesuvius. And I said, oh, how cool. Yes, I like the mountains. Why not try it? I did that. I was finished first in my age group. That doesn't mean I was really good, but there were not too many people. I mean, the other two ladies probably were
Right.
just a bit slower than me. But anyhow, I loved it. Just fell in love back then. This was before. That was back then was only an 18-kilometer trail run there, but I absolutely fell in love with it and just thought about doing this for hours and hours. Like after that 18 kilometers, I was like, it's already over, and yeah, I just could have continued it for hours. And this is what I'm doing now. I just continue for hours and hours. I just love it. And but I still majorly run on the roads because I had joined a running club and this is what they were majorly doing. And I already had told
Mm-hmm.
my director of my running club, I said, hey, in a year or so, I want to run the Passatore, which is a 100-kilometer road race here in Italy. I said, I'm going to run this. Well, that was before the hip. The fracture, right? And the hip
Mm-hmm.
replacement. After the hip replacement, I realized one thing that it was so much more easy for me to run on trails than on the road. Just for my joints. Even for my other hips is still
Right.
there's arthrosis still there. But I feel so much better and so much more without pain if I run on trails than on the road. Yes, downhills are a bit, I have to be careful. But overall, my body feels much better in running on trails. So I focus now much more on trails. And I have since set aside the Passatore 100K, which had been a dream for me for many times, for a long time. I'm now looking on 100 kilometers on trail, which means I'll be there longer.
Mm-hmm.
And and I have all the things I love, the views at this level. Yes, I still have not done 100K. It's planned for next year. I did several 50Ks, which I absolutely love. And yeah, just the sort of me going even longer, absolutely not a thing for me. It's maybe I'm more worried about. I be one of those that's chasing the cutoffs. Definitely. I mean, I'm 60. I'm just
Right.
running for just a few years and, have a body that has its issues, because even if I feel good now, even if I have thankfully no issues with bone aches, my hips, yes, they need, if I'm not very, very good with doing my exercises, then maybe there can be a little bit of pain. So I have to be really, really disciplined with this.
Mm.
But so still, I have a body of an ex-obese, and all
Right.
my organs and everything are much more prone to injury, maybe, I mean, you even have to relearn certain
Mm-hmm.
movements and certain things that become a reflex about for years um, when you are obese. You have to relearn that you don't need it anymore. Example, just a stupid little example. To check your chair before sitting down becomes normal for you if you're obese, because you
Mm-hmm.
don't want to have a wobbly chair. The thing of having to put your hands on the table to get up, I don't need to do it anymore, but my head thinks it needs to do it. To grab onto something to pull
Mm-hmm.
yourself up the stairs, I don't need to do this anymore. But sometimes my head seeks the easy way out to grab onto something, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so it's a thing that takes time, and this thing, so I have to give my body also the grace of saying, well, I will not. I might, maybe, if there's not too many people in my age group, maybe I can make an age group. But after that, I have just to give myself grace and chasing the cutoff, and see just that my road to ultra running is not one only of the kilometers I do now, but it's actually a story of 50 years of obesity. And that I'm still carrying these in a certain
Mm-hmm.
sense with me on the way, even if the kilos are not there anymore, but they are still in my organism. I don't know if I make this clear. I'm not very good explaining it.
They're
Exactly.
still
Yes.
part of you.
Yeah.
They're still
Yeah.
a
Yeah.
part of you. Yes.
And so,
That's a beautiful story. And, I never even check my time when I do races. I just do them for fun.
yeah.
Like, it's fun to me. I haven't done an
Mhm.
ultra marathon yet or anything, but I love trail
Yeah.
running, and that's what got me interested in it. What would you say to someone who is younger, given your experience that you waited until your 50s to make a change that you felt like you needed to make? Do you have any encouraging things to say for younger people to maybe prompt them to make changes that they need to make in their life sooner?
I'm always, the first thing is check yourself, look in the mirror, not to see how pretty you are, but just look in the mirror and tell yourself, I love you, and see if you really can do that. Most people can't, and if you see you cannot do this, if you can truly not tell yourself to love yourself, that you can forgive yourself about yeah, even wrong choices, then you definitely need to learn this. And that's not easy. Again, journaling for me has been a great help, and I'm talking to people. I mean, people can come to the situation. That's not need only to be, obesity. It can be also people that just suffer from depression or suffer from, self-love, that just, for whatever reason, but when you find yourself in those situations, it's a terrible trap for your personal happiness.
Mm-hmm.
And I think a great help in this is seeking movement, because I think our body is hungry for movement. And in the movement itself, doesn't need to be running, doesn't need to be walking, whatever. Maybe somebody loves more bicycling or swimming, to do something. Or even at home, even, gosh, set yourself some little things, even if it means just to start getting up from the chair without using your hand like 10 times, trying to get up from the chair using just one leg, just little things to challenge yourself, you know? And because if you challenge yourself,
Mm-hmm.
then I believe you learn to be proud of yourself. And by being a bit proud of yourself, you start also to love yourself, to come to a point where you can accept yourself for whatever life has thrown at you, and with all your seemingly negative. There are people looking in the mirror and they start to see all the things that don't go, all the things that are just not perfect, or, that they have told from little, oh, your nose is too big, or your lips are too small, or whatever, just physically things. But the thing is that most people,
Mm-hmm.
they just look on the outside and they get stuck on the things they don't like, or maybe just superficially look at themselves and, oh yeah, I kind of like myself, but they don't go behind and said, well, do I love what I am? And if the answer of this is no, then I think you need to work on it. And I personally say, if you figure out you have no way out, I think it's worthwhile to find professional help. I mean, I would not want people to arrive to a
Right.
point I arrived and have to, have to have the awakening about my really best friend dying a horrible, horrible death, just to come to a point to find I have to learn to appreciate life. I have to learn to be thankful for the life that is given to me, and I have to learn to love myself. This is just the bottom line of my story. Learning to love myself. And even though people say, well, ultra running is just for people that do not love themselves, some people do say that, right? I think, yes, I love myself enough to take the time to do that. And I freaking love it.
That's good. I think that's something like us moms forget to do sometimes is
Yes.
also take care of ourselves, because then we're better at
That's
taking
right.
care of everyone else. And that's definitely something that I find myself doing, skipping workouts sometimes. And that's the thing I love. That's one of my favorite things to do. I love working out. And I think it's a great
Yeah,
way to connect with other people too.
absolutely.
So I really appreciate you reaching out to me, and it's been such a pleasure speaking with you. I do have a couple of questions before we finish up. One is, what is your favorite place that you would recommend visiting around you for those who have not
I'm
been to your
absolutely
area?
saying, and as I said in the beginning, the Amalfi Coast is absolutely mind-blowing beautiful. It's, to my opinion, a paradise for trail runners. You might, if trail runners want to come in that area, then they might want to reach out to trail runners here to find the right trails to use. Not everything is well kept.
Mm-hmm.
Mount Vesuvius is obvious a beautiful place to run, and it's just so beautiful. Yeah, the whole area. I mean, Naples is just such a beautiful. There's not only Pompeii. Everybody that comes in the area, they go to Capri, they go to Pompeii. But yes, lots of history there, and just Capri is just a posh place to be. But Naples is such an amazing city. It's worthwhile just visiting and spending time there. There's so much to see, many museums and sites to visit. and just the views. And Spaccanapoli, it's the name of the road, which passes all the way through Naples. You can see it from top. You can see this long road just passing through the city. It's called Cutted Naples, because it looks like a big cut through the city. Spaccanapoli. It's just amazing. It's just so beautiful. Yeah, I'm in love. I'm in love with this place here.
I could see why you
Yeah.
say that it is very beautiful there. And one question I like to ask everyone is, what is the best piece of advice you have ever received that you would like to share, or something advice-wise that you would share with someone listening?
Well, if it goes about sport, then I say listen to your body and listen and never overdo it like I did in the beginning, because it brings injury. And I should have listened to who told me to slow down. I should have listened. I might have saved my hip back then. Now I'm a little bit too late, but trying to be wise about my other hip. But yeah, otherwise,
Right.
my only advice, in life is to learn to love yourself. I really can't say anything else right now.
I love that. I think that's beautiful. I think that's a great advice. And I can tell that you are very happy and full of life just by seeing your face and how passionate you are about exercise and getting outside and doing so. I love that. It's always such a beautiful thing to see. And I wanted to thank you so much for joining me today. It has been such a pleasure hearing your story and getting the good advice from you. And I hope that it helps whoever listens to be encouraged to make
Absolutely.
changes they need to make in their
Absolutely.
life. And thank you so much for speaking with me. Please keep in touch and I will let you know
Thank
when
you.
your episode comes out.
And I wish you all the best. And I can only tell you, I heads up for you still holding on to training and exercising with all these little kids around. I know that's not easy, and I'm kind of happy I'm not in your shoes in that anymore because that's definitely not easy. I know that, and So
Yes,
I wish you all the best, and never forget to love yourself and take care of yourself.
thank you. Yes, I need that advice every day with little
I
kids.
know.
Okay, well, it has been a pleasure speaking with you, and I'm glad I got to meet you. And I hope you keep in touch. And maybe now I can convince my husband to come run in your
Yes,
area
why not? Is
one
he a
day.
runner too?
He's
Okay.
much faster than me, but I keep
Perfect.
going for
Yes.
a long time.
We have all the endurance. They have the speed. It's okay.
He's my he
Okay.
likes 5Ks, and I will just go
Right.
slow and
Absolutely.
forever. I could go all day.
Let him do his 5K
Yes.
and be happy with it. But, maybe one day, maybe when he gets older, then he's gonna love the bigger time in the mountains. Mhm.
Maybe. Well, have a great
Okay.
day, and it was a
Okay.
pleasure meeting you.
Bye. Bye.
Bye.